Welcome to the Redwood ACLU Candidates Debate on Civil Liberties between contenders for the Eureka School Board, Trustee Area 4, Incumbent Judy Anderson and Challenger Susan Johnson. This debate is sponsored by the Redwood chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union and produced by independent producers working with the Humboldt Sentinel, broadcast right here on Access Humboldt, Channel 11. Now here's your moderator, Xandra Manns.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Eureka School Board Candidates Debate on Civil Liberties, which has invited both candidates running for the Trustee Area 4 seat on the Eureka School Board. The Redwood chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union is sponsoring this debate. Your Redwood ACLU has over 850 members on the North Coast who are dedicated to preserve, protect, and defend the fundamental rights and freedoms contained in our state and federal constitutions. And the public can find out more about us by visiting our website, redwoodaclu.blogspot.com, or by calling 442-4419. We thank you all for joining us today, October 26th, and we also thank Charles Douglas and Dave Giarrizzo of the Humboldt Sentinel for their work in bringing this debate to live television audience on Channel 11. In fact, this is the first live televised debate for the Eureka School Board to be broadcast from school grounds right here at the Access Humboldt Community Media Center at Eureka High School. My name is Xandra Manns, and as a Eureka resident and board member of the Redwood ACLU, I will be moderating tonight's debate with the help of our timekeeper and our question sorter, who will take audience questions via note cards. The format of the debate is as follows. We will have 2-minute opening statements by each candidate, the order of which will be determined by lot, as with the order of reply for all questions. The first phase of the debate will center around questions posed by the moderator concerning civil liberties issues in Humboldt County, with each candidate given 5 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates will also be given the opportunity to make 2-minute rebuttal statements, but no more than once per question. The second phase of the debate will center around questions posed by the live television audience watching at Channel 11. Viewers, if you are watching this live program this evening, October 26th, please call 336-2258. That's 336-2258 to get your questions in. These questions will be taken by the question sorter. Only questions that are directed towards both candidates shall be forwarded to the moderator in order to avoid loaded questions and personal attacks. As with the first phase, each candidate is given 5 minutes to respond to each question. Candidates will also be given the opportunity to make 2-minute rebuttal statements, but no more than once per question. Lastly, each candidate will be able to give closing statements of up to 2 minutes. Again, members of the public, call 336-2258 with your questions starting now. All right, candidates, let's begin with your opening statements.
Hello, my name is Susan Johnson, and I'm running for the school board, Ward 4. I'm a Eureka native, born and raised here in Eureka. I went to Eureka City Schools, graduated from Eureka High School. My husband is also a 4th-generation Eureka native and went to Eureka City Schools. We have 2 children. I have a daughter that graduated from Eureka High in 2010, and I have a son who's currently a junior at Eureka High School. I had got into this race for school board because I believe we need a fresh voice and a new perspective on the board. I think it's time for some changes in our local school system, and I think I'm the person to do that. I think that an important part of making change is getting some more active dialogue and participation from the community, from the students, from the parents, from the teachers, before we make the decisions that the board is currently making. I feel like in the past we've had a real reactive board. We've had declining enrollment, and reactions to that have been closing schools, cutting programs, and I think it's time to start looking at other ways of dealing with those problems and looking into why we're having declining enrollment and what we can do to make our schools the schools of choice for parents and students by offering music programs and the lower grades that we don't offer. And we need to start looking at what we're going to do with some of our empty sites, like when Winship is emptied. I think it'd be a really good opportunity to look at something different there, maybe a K-8 school, maybe a preparatory arts school, and language immersion school, something different that's going to really draw students to our schools.
All too often, students who get in disciplinary trouble find themselves in a school-to-prison pipeline, and a disproportionate share of these students are from ethnic minority and economically disadvantaged backgrounds. What policies would you pursue on the Eureka School Board to develop alternatives to expulsion that prevent bias and push out?
Well, I think that a big part of what goes along with that is, as a parent and with my kids during what I've noticed in the school system is if I'm not there actively being involved at every step of the way, and I mean really being in there and advocating for my child, that it's a hard system to navigate. And I think that unfortunately for kids that are disadvantaged like this, they don't necessarily have that advocate. They don't always have somebody in there pushing for them, and I think we need more resources in the school to do that. We have some really great programs. We have one program at Eureka High that's AVID, that's for kids that have families that that aren't college graduates. And it really helps foster those kids through the system. And I think we need more counseling, we need more support for those kids. And I think we need to look at things. Also, I think that what happens is these kids are pushed to be taught to a standard, and every kid has to be to the same level of education, and some kids aren't ready. And I think we need to look at how we can educate the whole child, and we can let kids. There's a certain type of education program out there that's called RISC that actually has kids go through a continuum of their education. So if you teach a subject and some of the kids master it, some are getting there, some don't get it at all, but then you just move on the next day to the next subject, those kids that don't get it get really discouraged and they don't do well in school, and then they start having behavior problems. And I think this program teaches each kid at their level and moves them along as they're ready. And I think we need to be looking at those kinds of alternatives.
Even though they are minors, students still possess basic human rights, such as the right to privacy. Do you believe drug testing students as a prerequisite to participation in extracurricular activities is appropriate? Why or why not?
No, I don't think it's appropriate. I think that the only time that it's appropriate to test a child or anyone for a drug is if you have reasonable belief that they are intoxicated or that they have been using a drug. I don't think it's right to ever single out just because you're in a certain group that whole group is going to get tested, and I don't believe that is in the best interest of the children.
Bullying is a long-term issue facing every school district, and this issue has become more prominent due to several youth suicides across the country related to bullying. Do you believe zero-tolerance policies address the underlying causes of bullying, or what alternatives do you suggest?
Well, I think that recently, there was just a new law passed in our state just in October this month. It was called Seth's Law, and it's because of a young man, Seth Myers. Nope, I got his last name. Seth Walsh, I'm sorry, that actually killed himself after being bullied. He was a homosexual child. And I think that in that law, unfortunately, it was passed, but it's watered down. The parts in the law that had anything to do with money that was going to help educate teachers and educate students were left out. And so I think it's important that as a school district that we're going to have to fund that. Irregardless of the money, we're going to have to try to come up with those funds somewhere, because it's a very important issue. And the law is going to require schools to make sure that they have anti-bullying policies in place. But I think we're also going to have to dedicate some funds to making sure there's plenty of education that goes along with that. And I do know that currently, right now, I talked to a principal and a few teachers that are involved in an anti-bullying workshop right now. And it's right now they're first laying it out in the grade schools, and the teachers are in the process of learning it right now. And what it has to do with is making everybody in the system accountable, and you have to get all the teachers buy-in, all of the staff's buy-in, and the students, so that if anybody sees anything going on, they're immediately addressing it. So if a teacher's walking down the hall and hears another kid yell something at somebody else, they need to deal with it right then and there, and everybody has to be willing to do that. And I think that that's a really good way to go, and I think it's really important that we deal with that problem.
Again, members of the public, call 336-2258 with your questions. What is your opinion on the school district using school resource officers to patrol the hallways at district schools? Do you feel this leads to more school-based arrests for nonviolent offenses?
I think it's kind of unfortunate that there's a policeman at the high school. I think it's too bad that the high school has to feel that way. I do think that it probably does. I would assume it's going to lead to more arrests. If there's somebody there that's going to be arresting people, then it's going to lead to more arrests. But I do think that hopefully having his presence there and just having his visibility there will decrease some of the tension and the fighting that goes on, and hopefully take care of some of the problems.
Earlier this year, the California State Legislature adopted curriculum standards recognizing the historical contributions of gays and lesbians in our history. Do you feel Eureka City Schools has gone far enough to move beyond tolerance towards acceptance of sexual minorities?
I think that the anti-bullying things that we talked about earlier also needs to be addressed in that aspect. And I do know that there is a club at Eureka High School, and I did talk to the teacher that runs that club. It's the YA Club, Youth Educating Against Homophobia. And I asked him if he thought that if he was seeing gains in that area and what he thought. And he said he felt like that there was still quite a bit of discrimination that was happening to those kids, and he would hear things being said, but he said that he felt like the club was helping them deal with that better, not necessarily that it was going away and as much as he would like to see it. And he said that it is better, but he still sees it, but he feels like that the participation in that group and the peer support is helping kids deal with it better.
Do you feel that test-based accountability schemes, like No Child Left Behind, encourage schools to push out the students with low test scores? Is there a punishment gap of selective enforcement between students with different test achievement levels?
I strongly feel that the No Child Left Behind laws and teaching to a test is not the way to teach our children. I think that it's been proven that it's not the way to teach our children. Our kids are not learning. They're learning how to take a test. They're not learning how to be critical thinkers. They're not learning how to learn. They're learning how to fill in bubbles. And I don't think that's the way to teach our kids. And I know that there are changes coming to that law, and I hope that they're going to be substantial and that we're going to make changes in how we're teaching kids. I know that President Obama has offered states a waiver, basically because by the year 2014, all states kids are supposed to be meeting a certain criteria for these test scores, and they're nowhere near that criteria. So he has offered states waivers. At this point, our state has not accepted that waiver. What that means, what the waiver means is that the state then has to come up with how they're going to gauge children's success and how they're going to implement teaching and showing how this is going to show that kids are successful. And the state isn't prepared to do that. So I think that I know that even if we don't take the waiver within the next couple years, we will see changes to that law once our Congress starts actually working and and doing something productive. We are going to see some changes to that law, and I hope that what the changes we see are going to be putting the choices back to the state level and to the district level, and getting teachers more involved in the process and talking to the people that are actually teaching the children and find out the best way.
Now we have an audience question. Are the candidates concerned about the Eureka School Reserve Fund now and 2 to 3 years from now?
The reserve fund, as I understand right now, is like the minimum that they have to have is like 3%, and right now they have a 7% reserve. So I think the reserve fund looks good at the moment. But there are expenditures coming in the future that they're concerned about, that reserve could go down. But I think that a part of that is we have to work smarter with the dollars that we have. I mean, we're getting fewer dollars. Education is terribly underfunded. And I think that, first of all, all of us need to be fighting for better funding for education. We need to be encouraging our legislators to fund our education system. But while we are dealing with the system that we have to be smarter with the dollars that we have. And I don't think that we've always have been really smart with the dollars that we've had. One instance that I think is really unfortunate is that the sale of the district office. The district office was just sold for $1.1 million, and then all of that money has been put into making Marshall School into a district office. At the last board meeting, they said they may have $16,000 left after they finish that construction, which seems like a total waste of money to me. I mean, kids are in portables, but the district office has $1 million upgrade. And while my daughter was at Eureka High School, she had classes in that building. All 4 years she was there. My son had classes in that building last year. So the building was good enough for kids to be in, students to be in classrooms, but it took $1 million upgrade for a district office. That seems like a really not the smartest use of our funds.
Do you feel arts and music classes are adequately funded at present? If not, what can be done about it?
I don't think they are. I think that one of the reasons, and it takes putting some money out, and then I think in the long run you're going to see some money back, and it's going to because you're going to get more students. But currently our music program doesn't start until the 4th grade. There's nothing for kindergarten through 4th grade, and studies have shown that grade school is the biggest impact for music and learning with children. And those kids that have that impact later in life have higher math scores, higher science scores. We all know how kids learn by singing. I mean, that's how they learn the alphabet. And music is a really important part of education, and I really think that we need to fund something in that K through 4 area. And I think that we lose a lot of students from our school district because of that. I have a lot of friends, I've talked to a lot of parents that take their kids to Cutton School, take their kids to Freshwater School because they have a full music program, and it's an important aspect.
Is the installation of video surveillance equipment at school district facilities a wise use of public funds? Will the idea that they are being recorded help or hinder the educational experience of students?
I don't think that's a wise use of funds. I would not want to be recorded. I mean, it's a little bit nerve-wracking being recorded right now. So I can't imagine in a learning environment knowing everything I'm doing is being watched. I don't think that's a good idea.
What role does the school board play in hiring and firing of teachers?
The only person that the school board hires is the superintendent. I think that they, in my understanding, but like I have not been on a board yet, and that there's a lot of things I will learn, I'm sure, once I become a board member, and I might not be correct on that, but my understanding is the only person that is directly hired by the school board is the superintendent. But I will find that out for sure.
What would you do about declining enrollment?
I think that what we need to do with declining enrollment, that's one of the reasons that I think there's the difference in myself and my opponent is the fact that I really believe that we need change, and that's one of the reasons I think we need change is the declining enrollment. And I think that we need to look at a much broader picture and look at our school system in a much more global aspect into how can we get kids into our schools. And one of them is what we talked about earlier, adding I think more music and arts. I think the other thing is as a parent, when my children were involved when we had transitions, 2 different transitions. One of them was when they moved 6th grade to junior high. My child happened to be that year. And that was a really stressful year for a parent because I really wasn't ready for her to go to junior high for 6th grade. And then my son was when he went to 1 year at Winship, and then when they consolidated the junior highs, he was in that move to Zane. And I think that those were times when we should have fought a little bit more outside and tried to bring more students in instead of reshuffling kids. Within 5 years, kids were shuffled 3 different times. First, we were told, well, no, 6th grade has to be at the middle school. And I went to meetings to talk about that, and we were told that to get the funding that they needed from the state, they had to have a middle school, which included 6th grade. Well, 3 years later, they pulled them back to the grade school level. So was that really the case or not? And there's been like 35 years of research done, and the number one thing that increases academics, decreases violence in schools, and makes students happier students is the lower number of students in the school. So not overcrowding schools, and I think that our junior high is really crowded. But I know that our junior high has some good programs, and I think that, but there are a lot of schools on that a lot of children on that one campus. And I think that as we move the adult ed and the programs that are at Winship off of that site, we really need to consider something that's really going to be a great draw and really great for the students, and consider some kind of a school there, like a K through 8, that's going to decrease the number at Zane and kind of make both schools better for it.
Again, members of the public, please call 336-2258 with your questions. Would you want to look at consolidating Eureka schools with other nearby schools? I have not really thought about that. I don't really know that I have an opinion on that. I haven't really thought about that. What do you think has changed the most about high school since you were a student?
I think that, for one thing, I think it's a lot more rigorous. When I think about when I was in school, my senior year, I went to school 2 periods and then had a job. And had work experience. I had all the credits I had to graduate, but kids aren't doing that anymore. I look at the classes my kids took and the AP courses and the levels of math and the things that they're taking. It's a lot more rigorous, and I feel like kids are really stressed. I think they have a lot of rigor and a lot of homework, and that's another thing that a lot of school districts. There's been a lot of studies on homework and how much it really increases test scores, and the thing that we're using now to evaluate kids' performance. And there really hasn't been a lot of proof that it does. And there's a lot of school districts that are trying a model of K through 8 not having homework, having just reading. Their homework every night is to read, because reading really increases a child's knowledge. And so those are some other things that I think might be interesting to look at too. But I think I also think that high school is that I don't remember the degree of bullying, and I don't remember the degree of violence that's happening now in the high schools that we had. I don't think we had that when I was a student, and that's a little scary.
Been a lot of changes. Should the Eureka School Board be broadcasting their meetings live on Humboldt Access?
Absolutely. I watched I watch them on Humboldt Access, and I think it's a great opportunity for people to get more involved. I also think that I didn't know this was here. I didn't realize it was here at the high school. I think this is something that we need to be showing the public that we have at our high school. This is something to really show people and showcase, because it's a great thing that we're doing at the high school. And I think that it's also a great place for high school students to showcase things that they're doing and to make, to tape things and put them on and show things they're doing. One of the things that just makes me think of is at some of the board meetings, they're talking about changing the name of Zoe Barnum. And there was a teacher that came, there was a principal that came from the school that said, and read a letter that a student had written that was really nicely written, and had talked about how the students and the teachers that work there really don't want to change the name. They feel connected to it. It's their school. And the board wants to change the name due to they say it has a negative connotation in the community. And I think that changing the name isn't going to change that. The negative connotation is the perception that the community has of those kids. And I think that this would be a great avenue for the media, the kids that are into media, to get out there and do a campaign and interview some of these kids and show the programs they're doing at Zoe Barnum and change the community's perception of the program and the kids, and not the name of the school.
What measures do you advocate taking against bullying of gay students?
Well, I think we kind of talked about those a little bit earlier. I think that the law that just passed is going to regulate schools to make sure they have an anti-bullying campaign. But I also think that we really need to put some more money into the educating of people about the importance of anti-bullying. But also, there's a program called Be the Change that the schools do. And I know my daughter was saying, because her boyfriend goes to Fortuna High, and he was talking about how that really impacted him, and he had been bullied, and that by a kid and him that were in this Be the Change program, where kids actually get together and they talk about, and they say, this is what somebody said to me and it hurt me, that this kid actually apologized to him and didn't realize how much it had affected him. And my daughter was saying that at Eureka High, everybody doesn't get to go to that because there's too many students, and they just kind of pick certain students that they think are higher risk, and she thought it would be really great if everybody got to go to that. And maybe that would be something we could look into that might help if everybody had that education.
Again, members of the public, please call 336-2258 with your questions. Several years ago, California adopted a series of education standards. Do you think these standards were successful?
I don't think that having standards that require every child to be at the same level at the same time are going to be successful, because kids all learn at different levels. Some kids are ready to learn certain things at one point, and another kid is just not ready for that. And when you set a standard that every kid has to meet the same standard, you're just never going to be able to have every child be successful. There's always going to be childs that are left behind, even though it's no child left behind. And I don't think that that's the way to gauge success.
What about music? Not music. You've talked about music, but what about the theater and the arts programs? I went to a couple of plays that I thought were really excellent, but I was surprised that there was hardly anyone there in the audience, and I thought this is another way that the community could know more about the high school and support it.
Yeah, I don't know why more people in the community don't come out to those. They are really great. The high school does a wonderful job. They do some really great performances and plays, and I think maybe we could get them advertised more, maybe right here. You could put some advertising on this Access channel and get it out there more that they're happening. But they do a really nice job.
Is tenure a good or bad thing? Is it being used as a crutch by incompetent teachers?
Well, I think that, I think in any field, you're going to have people that are better at what they do than others. And I don't think that tenure is necessarily the problem. I think that if it's there to protect teachers, and I understand why, because if you're going to have a layoff system and you're going to lay people off, then an employer, if they don't have that in place, is going to lay off the people that are at the top and are making more money. It's going to be the thing. That's going to be what happens. And so there has to be some protection for those people that have put in all those years and all that experience teaching. So I do think that I think you can have a teacher that isn't as good as another, whether it's a new teacher or an older teacher, and that's that way in any profession. You're always going to have some people that don't meet the standard.
Members of the public, call 336-2258 with your school board candidate questions. You advocated more K-12 music classes. What would you cut to find funding for those classes? Where would the money come from?
I think that in order to answer that really clearly, I would have to be on the board and see the budget. I don't know the budget to know where things are to be cut at this point in time, but I definitely think that I wouldn't spend that much money to remodel a school for a district office, and I could see some funds coming out of that. I also, I think trying to increase some revenue, I mean, you also have to look at the fact that by doing that, you're going to draw more kids to your school, hopefully, which is going to also increase some revenue.
What is your background in education?
Well, I don't have a background as far as a teacher. My background is just being a parent and being a community member and being a very strong advocate of the public education system. And I think that it's the system that we need to have, and I think we need to fund it adequately so that it's a good system. My background as far as why I think that I could do a good job, I have other things in my background that I think are an enhancement, and those are, I've been a nurse for 25 years, and as a nurse, I've been a staunch advocate for my patients. I've advocated for them at the bedside. I've advocated for them on a national level. I've been to Washington, D.C. I've been to Sacramento advocating for health care. I've advocated for education at both of those places for education funding, and I feel like I can use those advocacy roles to advocate for students. I also have been very involved with my nurses association, California Nurses Association, and in that role, I am on a professional practice committee at the hospital that looks into practice concerns and patient safety concerns, and I've been a leader in that. And I've also bargained all 3 of our contracts on behalf of the nurses, so I have some contract bargaining experience. And doing that really teaches you how to be a good communicator and how to learn how to come to consensus and learn how to get to an agreement that you can both feel comfortable with and not make one side or the other feel disrespected. And I think that that's a really important strength that I have.
Again, members of the public, please call 336-2258 with your questions. Do you think there are adequate vocational training opportunities?
The vocational training opportunities, I think, are really important because I think that it's really important. The principal of the high school just gave a presentation at the, I think it was the board meeting before last, about the master schedule and how they're really encouraging, kind of limiting the kids' options on what electives they can take to try to steer them toward taking the electives that are going to make sure when they get done with high school that they have not only what they need to graduate from high school, but also what they need to meet the A through G requirements to get into a 4-year college. And I think that is a wonderful thing, and I think that we do need to encourage every kid to go to be able to achieve that maximum level. But I also think that there are those kids that's just not where they're going to be. They're not going to be a four-year college student. They might want to do a vocational program or something. So I think it's really important to have those opportunities for those kids also, because sometimes I think that's a good way to go about it, what he's doing, but I also think that we have to have an avenue for those kids that don't make it in that rigorous system, and that they don't feel like they've failed, and that they have something else, some other avenues that they can use.
Right, I remember my son wanting to take shop and signed up for it, but there was no wood that semester.
Well, I think also that another thing that I think and that would be really important is to, we have a lot of really great, and I've been on the school site council at the high school, and we have a great group of parents there. There's a great group of parents in PTA. We have a lot of parents with a lot of strengths and a lot of talents that I think that if you reached out to parents, there's a lot of them that would be willing to come in and help with some of those things. I think if a parent knew that there wasn't enough wood for a kid to take wood shop, there might be somebody out there that has some that they would be willing to donate. I mean, we might need to look into more fundraising and things like that. There's a lot of people, I think, out there that would be willing to help if somebody was reaching out to them.
I would like to remind the audience that this is the ACLU candidate debate for the Eureka School Board. 2 candidates are running. Susan Johnson is with us. Judy Anderson declined to appear in this debate. What do you recommend the school system do to motivate students to go to college?
Well, I think that as much, that's another place I think where we could really get some help from the community. I think that if we reached out to people in the community that are college graduates, that maybe went to Eureka High School, that or even if they didn't, but I think it'd be really, really cool if there was people that or they're college graduates and they're back in our community and they're, helping our community to come and speak to kids. We have that nice, the nice new auditorium right over here, and have some presentations, have graduates come back and talk about their experiences, and maybe have people come back that didn't go to college right away and then realized how difficult it was and then went back to college, and just give all kinds of different perspectives, and just really, I think, by educating kids.
Where do you stand on sex education in the schools, especially on abstinence-only education?
I don't think abstinence-only education works. I think that I think that we're naive parents if we're going to think that we're going to teach that to our kids, and that's what they're going to, they're just going to listen. I mean, I think it's kind of being naive, and I don't think it works, and I think that it's important that we have sex education in schools, and I think kids need that.
So, members of the public in Eureka, please join us on our school board candidate debate, sponsored by the ACLU. And you can call 336-2258 to submit a question.
We're answering the phone now as you speak.
Oh, good. There's one online.
I'll say hi to my daughter. Hi, Laura. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
What about, do they serve lunches at the schools?
They do.
And how do you think that contributes to...
I think that they should serve healthier lunches.
I agree.
I think that they serve some pretty unhealthy food. When my daughter was in high school, she got involved in a project to bring a salad bar to the high school and was able to get that brought in. But yeah, it's pretty unhealthy, the stuff that they're serving our kids. And I mean, that's a whole nother story with where that money comes from and why they get it. Yeah, exactly.
How do you feel about the adult education program?
I don't know a lot about the adult education program, but I think it's really important, and I'm really glad that we have it. But I don't know a lot about it to really say too much about it.
Yeah, I actually took some Spanish classes through the adult education. I thought it was very good. And there's other things on their curriculum that look interesting and helpful for people who are trying to learn how to read at a later date in their lives, things like that. So is there... Oh, what about the swimming pool? What happened to that swimming pool anyway? Did it ever get fixed?
You know, I know that at one point there was a lot of money put into it to fix it, and then it was closed again. So I don't think it was a permanent fix, and I think it's a lot of. I think that one thing I don't know that we're really going to have the money as a school system to run the pool, but I think we should all try to get behind Swim Possible, the group that's trying to put a swimming pool in down at the marina area. That would be great.
How do you feel about the absence of a traumatic brain injury classes in the Eureka adult schools?
Does that mean that there's not a class for kids with a traumatic brain injury? I wasn't aware of that.
No, I think it's in the for adult education. There's no traumatic brain injury classes in the adult school.
I don't know anything about that, so I don't really know what to say about that.
I guess there's a brain injury center in Eureka, and maybe they're thinking that it would be nice if you had a program that leads people into that kind of work, since there is an agency in town that has that. Here's one. What priorities would you recommend for the high school athletic program?
I think that the athletic programs are really important. One thing about that somebody had told me recently that has a student that's an athlete is that she really wished that there was more information from the counselors and from coaching staff about scholarships for kids that are playing athletes. She said she really had to work really hard and find information on her own for her daughter who's playing a sport and she wants to play in college. And she really wished that there was more information about that at the high school. I think that we have a great booster program, and I think that we have a great athletic program. I think part of the another issue that I have heard from parents is that it would be nice to have in some of the sports, like in football, I think they have a great coaching staff, but in some of the sports that are smaller, it's hard to get coaching that people that are really good at that sport. It's necessary. They just kind of, and they're there and helping and trying to coach, but it would be nice if they could get some more professional coaches in some of the other sports. Some of the things that I've heard from parents.
What role should religion and prayer play in schools?
I don't think religion or prayer should be in schools. Those should be taught in homes and in churches. I think that it's just not, the school isn't the place for that.
Last call for questions from the audience. Call 336-2258 with your questions. Do you want to close?
Sure. In closing, I would just like to thank you for this opportunity. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought. I was pretty nervous, but it went okay. And I would like to just let the public know that I really feel like I could do a good job on the school board. I really feel like I have an open mind. I feel like I can step up and ask questions when I feel like they need to be asked, the hard questions. I'm not afraid to do that, and I'm totally committed to advocating on behalf of the students and trying to keep every cut away from the classroom and try to do my best. And I respectfully ask for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you. We thank the candidates for participating in tonight's debate, and we again thank the Humboldt Sentinel and Access Humboldt for bringing this debate to a live television audience. In particular, I'd like to thank Charles Douglas and David Giarrizzo of the Humboldt Sentinel, as well as Jessamine Reed and Giarrizzo Wilhelmi of Access Humboldt for making this event possible, along with our fantastic volunteer crew from the Redwood chapter of the ACLU. This debate will be rebroadcast on Access Humboldt channels 11 and 12 and made available over the internet in the weeks leading up to the November election, November 8th. The American Civil Liberties Union never endorses or opposes candidates for public office. Yet, on behalf of the Redwood ACLU, I can urge you to contact Humboldt County Elections to find your polling place and make your choice for Eureka School Board on November 8th. Thank you at home for tuning in. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Redwood ACLU Candidates Debate on Civil Liberties between candidates Susan Johnson and Judy Anderson, running for the Eureka School Board, Trustee Area 4. You can watch highlights of this debate on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/RedwoodACLU. To contact the Redwood chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, give them a call at 707-442-4419, or you can email them at redwoodaclu@hotmail.com or visit their website, redwoodaclu.blogspot.com. The Redwood ACLU Board of Directors meets the third Tuesday of every month at noon at their office on 917 3rd Street in Old Town Eureka. Again, thanks to everyone at the Humboldt Sentinel and Access Humboldt for making this debate possible. The Redwood ACLU is a nonpartisan organization that never supports or opposes candidates for public office. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to get out there and vote on Tuesday, November 8th.